She rang the bell 6 times in under a minute, then started pounding on the door like it owed her something. My wife was inside, folding laundry, ignoring the chaos at the front porch the way you'd ignore a barking dog on the other side of a fence. Calm, collected, quiet. But that only made it worse. Because this wasn't just any neighbor. This was Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of our HOA. Clipboard in hand, sunglasses even in the shade, and an ego the size of the entire cul-de-sac. She had made it her mission to patrol the neighborhood like it was a gated kingdom, and she was security, judge, and executioner all in one. And today, she wasn't going to let silence win. So when my wife didn't open the door, she called the cops. It would have been just another petty power move if it weren't for one key detail. My wife is the officer in charge of this district. You'd think that'd stop someone, maybe make them think twice before dialing 911 for something as ridiculous as a doorbell being ignored. But Karen didn't know. Or maybe she didn't care. Either way, her self-importance dialed straight into dispatch with a breathless complaint. Suspicious woman won't answer the door, probably hiding something. Might be dangerous. Suspicious woman. She meant my wife. And just like that, things escalated fast. Now, here's the part where I need you to picture this. A calm suburban street where nothing ever happens. Kids' bikes on the lawn. Flags waving. Wind chimes dancing in the breeze. And suddenly, patrol cars creeping in. Lights off. Quiet approach. All because one woman couldn't accept being ignored. The tension? You could feel it. Inside, my wife was still unaware. She didn't even check the ring cam. She was off duty, taking a much-needed break after back-to-back night shifts. The plan was simple: rest, reset, reconnect. But rest was a luxury HOA Karen wasn't about to allow. And here's what gets me: Karen didn't stop at the call. No, she stood there with a phone in one hand and a smug grin like she'd just caught a criminal. She waved the officers down when they arrived, pointing at our house like she was revealing a drug den or secret lair. She won't come out, she said. I've knocked. I've warned her. This is a community, not a free-for-all. But the look on the officers' faces when the door finally opened, that's when everything shifted. Because the woman Karen was trying to report? She walked out in uniform, badge glinting in the sunlight, authority in every step. And what came next, what Karen said after that, took everything to another level. An accusation so wild, so embarrassing, it went beyond petty HOA drama. It turned the whole neighborhood into a stage for something deeper, something ugly that had been bubbling under the surface for years. And it wasn't just about rules anymore. It was about power, respect. And what happens when the person you're trying to control turns out to be the one actually in charge? But before I tell you what she said and what it cost her, you need to understand what led to that moment. Because this wasn't random. It wasn't a one-time thing. This was personal. And it had been building for months. So stay with me. Because once you hear the full story, you'll see this wasn't just a neighborly feud. It was a reckoning. It wasn't the first time Karen had pushed things too far. But this felt different. Like she wasn't just trying to flex her HOA muscles. Like she was trying to humiliate someone. And not just anyone, my wife, Camille. Camille isn't someone who talks a lot about herself. You wouldn't know just by looking at her that she's the youngest district supervisor in the city's police department. Or that she worked her way up while raising a kid solo for 3 years while I was deployed overseas. You wouldn't know she's the one officers call when things go sideways, because she knows how to lead without raising her voice. Calm but not soft. Quiet but never weak. Karen, on the other hand, thrives on noise. Whether it's her constant group texts about fence paint violations, or the long, angry Facebook posts about standards declining. She has a need to be heard, to be obeyed. And the one person in the neighborhood who never bowed to her, Camille, started small. Karen once claimed Camille's flower beds weren't HOA compliant. Then it was the solar panels, too shiny. Another time, she knocked to ask why Camille's police cruiser was parked a little off-center. Camille never reacted, never argued, just smiled, thanked her, and moved on. And that drove Karen insane. There's something about a woman who won't flinch that gets under people's skin. Camille wasn't disrespectful, just immune. She didn't rise to the bait, didn't feed the drama. That's what made her dangerous in Karen's eyes. Unshakable women are threatening to those who build their worth on control. So today's outburst, calling the police because Camille refused to answer the door, wasn't about one ignored knock. It was the tipping point in a long-standing war only Karen thought she was winning. And while Karen waited out front, rallying whatever moral superiority she had left, I stood behind the living room curtain watching it all unfold with a growing knot in my chest. Not fear. Not even anger. Just a sharp awareness that we'd crossed some invisible line. I watched Camille pause before opening the door. She had just changed out of her comfy tee and joggers, slid her uniform shirt on slowly like it was armor. Her eyes locked on mine for a second. "Should I even open it?" she asked, half a smirk on her face. "I mean," I said, "if you don't, she might call in backup." Camille laughed once, quiet and dry, and opened the door. "That's where the clip I showed you ended." But what happened in the seconds after is what really turned this into a story worth telling. The look on Karen's face wasn't just shock. It was betrayal. Like someone had pulled a mask off the world and nothing made sense anymore. She stared at Camille's badge like it was a lie. Like Camille couldn't possibly be the authority in this scenario. And then she doubled down. Her voice raised. She started accusing Camille of impersonating an officer. Said this was a setup. Demanded that the responding officers arrest her for intimidation. "You read that right?" She tried to have the woman in charge of their unit arrested. One of the younger officers looked like he was about to laugh, but the tension? It was razor sharp. Camille stayed calm, but her posture changed just slightly. Shoulders squared. Voice clipped. Like she was switching roles mid-scene. From neighbor to officer. From target to command. Karen didn't notice the shift. Not yet. She kept going. That's when she said it. A single sentence that made the whole situation spiral and forced Camille to finally confront what she'd been holding back for months. But I'll tell you what she said in a minute. First, you need to understand what Camille had sacrificed just to live in peace here. What she chose to overlook. Because sometimes silence is strength. But other times? It's just the calm before the storm. Karen's voice cracked with that kind of fury that doesn't come from the moment, it comes from years of bitterness piling up like dead leaves. "She's lying. She's pretending to be a cop to intimidate me. This is a crime," she shouted, pointing toward Camille, her hand trembling, not from fear, but from disbelief that her word wasn't being taken as law. Camille didn't move. Didn't blink. Just raised one brow slightly. "I'm happy to verify my credentials," she said calmly, slipping her badge from its holder. She held it out like it was routine. But her eyes were locked onto the officers now, silently asking, "Are you going to do your job? Or are you going to entertain this?" One of them, Officer Dawson, had worked under Camille during a recent internal investigation. He cleared his throat and took a half step forward. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, his voice tight, professional, "this is Lieutenant Camille Foster. She supervises this district. Has for over a year now." Karen froze, her lips parted slightly, eyes flicking between Camille, the badge, and Dawson's face. But even now, you could see her trying to reshape the narrative in real time. That's the thing about people like Karen, they don't back down. They pivot. "Well," she huffed, "why would someone like her live in this neighborhood?" And there it was. Not just a personal attack, a reveal. The truth Karen had been tiptoeing around for months finally cracked through her perfect posture and careful wording. This wasn't about a noise complaint or flower beds or mailboxes. It wasn't even about HOA rules. It was about who Camille was. A black woman in uniform. A quiet professional. A homeowner. A leader. All things Karen couldn't seem to reconcile. Inside the house, our teenage son Aaron had come downstairs halfway through the chaos, earbuds dangling, staring out the window with wide eyes. "Is Mom okay?" he asked, voice low. I nodded, though my jaw was tight. "She's doing what she always does. Staying calm while someone tries to pull her down." Aaron frowned. "Is this because of her job?" I almost said yes. But it wasn't that simple. And he was old enough to know that now. It's because she doesn't fit into the box some people need her to be in. And because she never apologizes for it. Outside, Camille finally spoke again. Her tone was still steady, but her voice had dropped half an octave. "Karen, this is your final warning. I suggest you speak with your HOA legal liaison before making any more false reports." Karen scoffed, turning to the officers. "So now I'm being threatened?" That's when Officer Dawson gently stepped in front of her. We're going to need to document this incident, he said, pulling out his tablet. If you'd like to make a formal complaint, you can do that at the station. And just like that, Karen realized something. The more she pushed, the more official this became. This wasn't just another porch confrontation. This was on record. Her eyes narrowed. Fine, she muttered. But I'm not done. People around here need to know what's really going on. And she stormed off, heels tapping sharply across the pavement, but not before glancing over her shoulder one last time. That glance wasn't fear. It was calculation. Because Karen wasn't going to disappear quietly. And we hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. The neighborhood felt quieter after Karen left, but not in a peaceful way. More like the air was holding its breath. Waiting. Camille stood on the porch for a moment, unmoving. The sun had shifted, casting sharp shadows across her uniform, her badge catching one last glare before she stepped back inside. She locked the door behind her. That simple sound, a click, felt heavier than it should have. I met her eyes. You okay? She didn't answer at first. Just leaned against the door, exhaling slowly like she'd been holding her breath longer than any of us knew. She's not done, Camille finally said. She knows exactly what she's doing now. I wanted to tell her it was over. That the officers saw the truth. That it was all recorded on body cams and that logic would win. But we both knew better. Karen had just been handed humiliation in public, and people like her don't sit with that quietly. They retaliate. Sure enough, by sunset, the HOA group chat exploded. I wasn't even on it, but neighbors started forwarding screenshots. Posts about false authority, intimidation tactics, abuse of power. Karen didn't name Camille directly, but she didn't have to. One message stood out: it's not just her uniform that concerns me. It's what she's hiding behind it. Hiding. That word hit wrong. And Camille felt it too. Her shoulders stiffened when she read it. I think she's digging, she said quietly. I think she's going to go after my service records. Can she even get those? She can try. But worse, she might not need them. She just needs to plant doubt. That's when Aaron came in, holding his phone, wide-eyed. Mom, is it true what she posted? Camille froze. What did she post? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Aaron hesitated, then read from his screen. Someone said you were involved in that officer-involved shooting downtown last year. That the case was covered up. My heart dropped. Camille hadn't spoken about that incident in months. I knew the broad strokes, it was justified. Investigated. Cleared. But the emotional toll it took? The way it stayed with her, even in sleep? Now it was back. Weaponized. She's reaching, I said, stepping between them. That was closed. The city cleared you. Camille didn't move. Her face didn't crack. But her hand tightened around the back of the kitchen chair. She's trying to turn the neighborhood against me, Camille said. And if she can't do it with rules, she'll do it with fear. We stood in silence for a beat too long. Then Camille turned and walked toward her office, shutting the door behind her. That's when the knock came. Loud, sharp, measured. 3 knocks. Not the cops. Not Karen. Someone else. I opened the door just a crack. And standing there was a man in a suit, clipboard in hand. City seal on his badge. Is Lieutenant Foster home? My stomach turned. What is this about? He glanced down at his clipboard. We're following up on a formal ethics complaint submitted this afternoon. Regarding possible misconduct and retaliation. The world tilted slightly. Aaron stood frozen behind me. And Camille? She was already walking back down the hall. I'll handle it, she said quietly. But something in her eyes was different this time. Not fear. Resolve. And something else. Like she'd known this moment was coming. Camille stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind her. Quietly. Carefully. Like someone preparing to step into a room where the floor might collapse beneath her. The man from the city gave a short nod, professional, stiff. Lieutenant Foster, he said. We received an anonymous complaint alleging retaliation against a civilian, specifically the president of your HOA. Camille blinked once. Retaliation? Misuse of position, he clarified, flipping to the second page of his clipboard. Influencing responding officers. Creating an environment of fear. Failure to disclose a prior disciplinary warning related to excessive force. That last part hit like a slap. Because there wasn't one. I knew that for a fact. There had never been a disciplinary warning. It was the only thing Camille ever made me promise not to worry about. I built my record clean. No shadows. No shortcuts. And yet here it was in ink. On an official document. Camille's voice didn't waver. That warning is fabricated. I've never had a write-up. I understand, the man said, neutral. But someone submitted a copy. Attached to the complaint. Looks like it came from internal systems. She froze. For the first time today, no smirk, no calm breath, no quiet strength. Just a moment of real, undeniable confusion. And then I saw it. A flicker in her eyes. Realization. Someone on the inside, she whispered. Someone pulled this from my file. Or made it look that way. She knew who. She wouldn't say it yet. But I could see it forming behind her eyes. A former colleague. Someone who never liked taking orders from a woman. Especially her. Someone who smiled to her face and undercut her the moment she earned command. And now? He'd handed Karen a weapon. Inside the house, I heard my phone buzz nonstop. Notifications rolling in, screen lighting up. More texts from neighbors. Screenshots. A post from the HOA page. Karen had leaked the disciplinary file. With Camille's photo attached. Caption, "This is who's enforcing your safety?" And worse, comments pouring in. Unbelievable. She tried to intimidate my daughter last year. I knew something was off about her. She's scary, not stable. All lies. All easy to believe when fed by fear. Back on the porch, Camille took a slow breath. But now her jaw was set. This is a coordinated smear. She couldn't get to me through HOA policies, so she went after my career. And she didn't act alone. The official side. That's beyond the scope of this visit. But if you can provide a formal response and proof of your claims, we'll know. Camille's voice was suddenly sharp. Final. I'll be coming to your office. With records. With timelines. With every complaint Karen's made to this department over the last 6 months. He looked at her almost surprised. Then he nodded. Slowly. Back inside, Aaron finally spoke. Mom, what if people believe her? Camille turned to him, and this time her calm was different. Not just controlled. Fierce. Then I'll remind them who I am. And I'll show them who she is. And then the twist none of us saw coming. From down the block, a car pulled up. Not police. Not the HOA. It was a news van. Marked. Camera already rolling. They were here for a story. Someone tipped them off. And this time? It wasn't anonymous. It was Karen. She called the press. And now the whole neighborhood was watching. The camera was already rolling before the reporter even stepped out. She approached with the poise of someone expecting to film chaos, not truth. Lieutenant Foster, we've received community reports regarding an incident involving abuse of power and harassment toward a local HOA president. Would you care to comment on the allegations? Camille didn't flinch, but I saw her pause for the smallest breath. Because this moment wasn't about winning a debate. It was about deciding who she wanted to be in front of everyone. When people whisper, when they doubt, when someone tries to reduce you to a headline. She stepped down the porch steps slowly, eyes steady. I would actually, Camille said. And then she turned, not to the camera, but to the neighbors who had begun to gather. People we've lived beside for years. People who waved during morning walks, who borrowed sugar and sent holiday cards. She looked at them. Some of you have known me for a long time. Some of you only know what's been said in the past few hours. She began. Her voice didn't rise. She didn't defend herself. She invited them in. You've seen me mowing my lawn after 12-hour shifts. You've seen me carry groceries for Mrs. Lang down the street. You've seen my son grow up here. But what you haven't seen, what you couldn't have, is the choice I've made every day since putting on this uniform to serve without showing pain. Without showing how hard it is to be trusted with safety and doubted at the same time. The reporter moved closer, mic extended, sensing something bigger. Camille continued. I was clear to that shooting last year. Fully. The city ruled it justified. But I still wake up at night hearing that sound. I don't talk about it. Because I didn't want it to define me. And now someone who doesn't care about truth used it to make you afraid of me. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Karen, still standing on her lawn, scoffed loudly. She's just spinning it now. Playing victim. Camille turned to her directly. You posted a falsified disciplinary record. You used your title to create a false emergency. You called the press, pretending to be a concerned resident. You think you're safe because you wear a different kind of badge. The reporter turned, clearly startled. Ms. Bennett, did you contact us under false pretenses? Karen blanched. I submitted a public concern. I was trying to actually, a new voice interrupted, calm and clear. She contacted the press from a city email account. All eyes turned. Officer Dawson stood beside his cruiser holding a printed document. It was sent from the account of a former city investigator, Michael Kane, recently fired. We tracked the source when the complaint came in. Karen's device. Kane's credentials. Karen's face drained of color. Camille stepped back, stunned. Michael? Kane? The final puzzle piece clicked into place. The bitter ex-colleague. The planted file. The connection. Karen stammered. He told me it was real. He said she was dangerous, that you used your influence to try to destroy her. Dawson cut in. And you used falsified city data to do it. That's not just petty MS. Bennett. That's a felony. Karen's voice cracked. I didn't know. I didn't mean, but no one was listening anymore. Because the truth was finally louder than the fear. And Camille? She didn't gloat. She just turned back to the reporter. You wanted a story. Now you have one. The camera stayed on her. But the silence around us had changed. No longer tight with tension, now thick with something else. Respect. Understanding. And one final twist. The city official who'd come to serve Camille notice took off his glasses, stepping closer. I'm sorry about today, he said quietly. This wasn't how it should have gone. I just spoke with my supervisor. They're opening an investigation into the complaint process itself. And they'd like to speak with you. About consulting on community reform. Camille blinked. You're asking me to help fix the system? He nodded. We need someone who's lived through it. And kept standing. And just like that, the story shifted again. From target to leader. In the days that followed, things quieted down, but not in the old way. Not the kind of silence you get when people are just pretending everything's fine. This was different. Softer. Real. The HOA board quietly removed Karen as president 2 days later. No big announcement, no spectacle. Just a folded chair where hers used to be, and a motion passed by a new vote. Unanimous. A neighbor named Jasmine, who'd lived on the block almost as long as Karen, stepped in. Her first move? Rewriting the reporting policies so no one could misuse their position the way Karen had. Karen? She didn't move out. Not yet. But we don't see her much anymore. She walks her dog early now, quiet, eyes low. Camille never pushed for more than that. No charges, no lawsuits, no public dragging. She said it best. Sometimes letting someone feel the weight of their own choices is enough. Aaron started speaking up more at school in small ways. Defending a friend who got picked on. Joining student council. One night he told Camille, I think people just needed to see someone not back down. She smiled, a little sad, but proud. Sometimes that's all it takes. As for Camille, her new role with the city? It's not official yet, but the meetings have started. She's working with policy teams and sitting across from people who once thought they knew more than she ever could. But now they're listening. And not because of her badge. Because of her story. As for our neighborhood, it didn't change overnight. But it started asking better questions. Like how easy it is to mistake silence for agreement. Or why some people get the benefit of the doubt and others get the spotlight turned on them the second they don't smile. Maybe that's the lesson. That what happened wasn't just about one woman pushing too far. It was about what happens when fear is louder than truth. When we let petty authority go unchecked. And what it means to stand your ground without losing your peace. Because Camille didn't fight back with anger. She didn't scream to be heard. She just stood still, honest, unshaken, and let the truth do what truth always does. Rise. And maybe that's what we all need to remember. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not flinch. Thanks for watching. If the story moved you, share it. Stories like Camille's matter because someone else might be going through the same thing right now without backup. Let them know they're not alone. Backhand index pointing right, like. Comment and subscribe for more real-life stories that speak truth, justice, and humanity. Because sometimes, the quietest people carry the loudest lessons.